Okay, Jay, well, thanks so much for taking time out to talk today. And so I'm curious how you're looking at this period of your career. Retirement doesn't quite seem like the right word because you're still out doing a lot of stuff, right?
It's exactly, before I had the Tonight Show, I was on the road a lot. When I got the Tonight Show, I was on the road 2, maybe 3 days a week. So now I'm just back on the road again. I've always been a stand-up comedian who was lucky enough to get a talk show. And I did that, but I never stopped doing stand-up, and I must admit I'm really enjoying it now. It's a lot of fun because I don't have to go back and write jokes every night. A couple of months ago, it was last year actually. I was in Atlantic City, and usually I do Atlantic City like on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then I have to fly home right after I come off stage because I got to get back and do the show the next day. But it was the beginning of a hiatus week, so I was in Atlantic City Saturday night, and I had to be in Pennsylvania Sunday. So after the show Saturday night, I went over and I saw Artie Lang, who was performing in town, and a couple other comics, and we all went out to eat. And I hadn't done that in like 15 years since I got the Tonight Show, just hang out with comics after a show because I always have to go back and write monologue jokes every night. And I had a great time. It was really a lot of fun catching up with comics and finding out what's going on the road. And that's what I'm doing now. When I go to a town, I don't have to, thank you, good night, rise off stage and get back on the plane and do the Tonight Show the next day. So it's fun to kind of hang out with the comics and have a good time.
And do you find, does it, now that you're increasing the regular stand-up, is your changing your act, your rhythm different? Are you feeling sharper? Or, you were obviously doing monologues every night, but that's different than doing the whole set. So,
yeah, the fun thing about the Tonight Show, when you do them with the Tonight Show, you do different jokes in the same place every night. When you're on the road, you do the same jokes in a different place every night. And
right.
By that I mean the fun thing about the Tonight Show is hopefully you're the first one out there with a joke about whatever happened that day. But as soon as you finish a joke, you say to yourself, I could have done it better if I did it this way. I wish I had a chance to work on that. I didn't really flesh it out. There were some other things there, whatever it might be. Whereas if you try it out on a Monday, it worked okay. And then Tuesday, I can't wait to get to that part of my act where I tweak that joke and play with a little bit, and you can just bring it out a little bit more and expand it. So both are fun to do, but I like being a stand-up because you don't need 175 other people to do it, and you don't get notes, like those network notes. Jay, we're not doing well with immature boys between 11 and 13, so if you could come up with something. Thank you for that note, Mr. Network Executive. So it's nice just to do what you do.
Right. So you're really enjoying that ability to kind of work on your craft, I guess, a bit, and sort of,
Yeah, craft is a bit, yes, working on my craft. That's correct, yes.
So maybe some ceramics also along with that?
Yeah, you write joke, tell joke, get check. Very simple formula.
So you're not going to be taking up painting like George W. Bush, nothing like that?
No, but he gave me one of his paintings, which was very nice.
Mm-hmm. And you were known on the Tonight Show for having all those political guests on your show. So are you doing political stuff in your act now, or continuing at that, or what's on your mind?
It's interesting. Most people's political knowledge ends about Secretary of State. Once you almost have to say, John Kerry, Secretary of State. Oh, is he Secretary of State? It's just political humor is like a whole separate area. And, you do some, yeah, but, if you're on a whole political rant and people don't really follow it, it's really different when you do casinos and things like that, because people there to have a good time. Most of them will say, I haven't read a paper in a week. What happened with Christie? Was there some bridge thing? Yeah, there was a whole big deal going on there. Yeah, so... And I guess to answer your question, I do some political, but not as much as I would do on The Tonight Show. Because The Tonight Show monologue is really just about headlines. You pick up the paper, putting the monologue together is like going through a newspaper. You start with the headline, what the big story is, and then you move your way through the paper. And then by the time you usually end up with pop culture or something of that nature, less frivolous news, But Tonight Show jokes really have a shelf life of maybe 3 to 4 days. A joke that got a laugh last night on the Tonight Show next week would seem like, what? Wasn't that last week? So.
And what's the shelf life for, your material you're working on for your act? Is a little longer?
Well, I mean, as long as it gets a laugh is probably the answer to that. I don't do videos. I never put out a CD. I mean, to me, if people want to hear what I do, I will come to your place and I will do it for you. This way I know I have your attention and I can do it, I mean, sometimes the trouble with trying to make money in all areas of show business is, I had a comic on the Tonight Show, a pretty popular guy, and he said, I'm doing a comedy album. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing my hour, and then I'm going to go on the road and promote it. I said, if you're going to do your hour on video or on a CD, you're going to have to throw it away because you can't do it on the road. Oh, no. Well, I saw him 6 months later. He was like shell-shocked because he would go out there and he'd start the act, and people go, I just heard that on the way over. I just listened to that in my car. And it was like, oh, okay. They can have your material anytime they want it. So the fact that you don't know where your act is at any one point, you want to tell a story and you realize, oh, that was just on YouTube last night, or somebody just listened to it on my album. So you've got to, the pace to come up with new material is much greater. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure. I guess, but also is there some ability to have a few greatest hit kind of jokes that people,
sure.
I've heard, there's things that people like to hear, certain routines. They please do this again because it's such a favorite thing.
I agree with that. I mean, I love Louis C.K. and I can, there are certain things I enjoy, but I listen to comedy, I think, the way other people listen to music. I like the rhythm of it. I like the syntax. I like the setup to it. But a lot of people might not necessarily be so tolerant.
And you are doing the Jay's Garage stuff still, right? That's still very much happening.
I love doing that. That's really taken off, actually. It's done well. We've been on YouTube just a little over a year, and we have, 850 or 60,000 subscribers so far. So we seem to pick up about 60,000 a month on that website. So that works out pretty good.
And what's the appeal for you? Just a nice venue for you to showcase your cars and just be involved in the car stuff?
Well, I like anything that rolls and explodes and makes noise. It's not just me showing off my cars. It's not like, hey, look at what I have. I mean, this one deals with steam technology and how steam engines work. And I have a couple of scholarships going on at schools for kids that want to be mechanics to do auto restoration. So, I mean, I like working with my hands. When you work with your hands, you can appreciate how easy it is to make money in show business. When you spend all day putting a transmission in and you make $80, you go, ow, your hands are sore and they're all greasy and they're bleeding, and you go, standing up and telling a joke is not that hard. Show business is not particularly difficult. People just make it difficult. And when you work with your hands and you do things like that, you appreciate how hard real jobs are. So consequently, you tend to be a little more tolerant of, nothing funnier than me when I love going to gigs, and I always ask, the stage manager, who's your worst? And it's always the same people. The limo was the wrong color, whatever it might be. Oh, shut up! Do your act. So
how many cars are you up to in your collection? Do you know the latest?
Well, there's a whole, you sound like my wife. There's a whole bunch there. There's about something. I mean, some are very valuable cars, and some are just old cars that I enjoy working on and fixing up, I can tell you're not a car guy.
Yeah, I have a car.
Well, I am sure you own a car.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it has more than 2 doors?
It's an old car. I live in Philly, and it's an old car that it can sit on the street. Nobody bothers it. It takes me where I need to go. It's that kind of situation.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's not quite the same, but yeah.
No, not at all. So you're talking about just now about how show business is not difficult. What about sort of the whole TV part of it? I mean, are you missing being on TV regularly? you not? It sounds like you don't miss the suits at all, from what you said about getting the
I don't. You know, I don't miss. You know something? We did it for 22 years, and we're able to keep it number one, and we're able to leave it number one, and that's great. You know, everybody says to me, yeah, but you know, when you left, every Tonight Show host was number one when they left. Steve Allen left at number one. Jack Park quit at number one. Johnny Carson left at number one. I left at number one. I think it's the nature of the beast, and it's how the franchise stays current. You know, you reach a point where you go, okay, you're talking to the 22-year-old supermodel. All right, you're now the creepy old guy. Okay, I mean,
yeah.
that's what it's just what happens. And you know, and music changes, social media, all these new things change. You go, okay, I'm not current with this. This is not what I do. You know, I really love Jimmy Fallon. He's really talented. When I see him do his Tom Petty impression or whatever it might be, I go, okay, I can't do that. That's not what I do. I did something else, and my era was over, and you move on to the next guy, and it's fine. I'm thrilled for him. Couldn't be happier. I just watch things unfold. You know, Stephen Colbert's coming into the fold. He's a really talented guy, really funny guy. I think he'll bring an interesting dynamic, especially he'll be coming on just during sort of the beginning of the next political go-around. So it should be fascinating.
Right. And for you, having, you know, had those couple extra years on the show, was that a special time for you because you had left once and then came back? And did you really savor these last few years, like, of being in that moment, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of old school. I come from you put your 20 years in and you get out kind of job. And, you know, 17 years didn't seem like the right time to get out of there. And the way the whole thing went down, obviously. And so we came back and we finished up and we were still number one, so that worked out okay.
And mentioning Colbert, picking up on that, Letterman leaving, does it feel sort of like, you know, this chapter sort of closing, that the two of you were kind of a certain era, now that the next era has sort of kicked off, or there's like a big offer in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, kind of old. I come from your 20 years to get out, and you know, do it. You know, years, do it. You know, didn't seem do it. You know, right, do it. You know, get out of there, do it. You know, and do it. You know, the way they do it. You know, down, do it. You know, and do it. You know, and do it. You know, so do it. You know, back when we were, okay.
And mentioning Colbert, picking up on that, for, you know, leaving, for, you know, like, you know, after sort of, you know, the two are, you know, kind of for, you know, now that for, you know, the next year, you know, kicked off, or, you know, there's like in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like come from your 20 get out, and you know, years didn't seem right to get out of there, and the way the down, and some back when we were on, so okay.
And mentioned Colbert, picking up on that, leaving. Is like, you know, after sort of the two kind of now that for, you know, the next year, you know, kicked off, or, you know, there's like for, you know, in that moment, for, you know,
yeah,
for, you know,
I mean,
for, you know,
kind of
for, you know,
like come from
for, you know, for, you know,
your 20, I get out, and you know, years, I didn't seem right. I got out of there, and the way the down, and do it, you know, and do it, you know. So do it, you know, back when we do it, you know, when we were do it, you know, do it, you know, so do it, you know, okay, do it, you know, do it, you know, do it, you know,
and mention
do it, you know,
Colbert, picking up on that, leaving, is like, you know, after sort of the two kind of now that the era, sort of the next year has sort of kicked off, sort of like a big era, so in that moment,
yeah, I mean, kind of old, like come from your 20 years to get out, and you know, years didn't seem right to get out of there, and the way the down, and some back when we were on, so okay,
and mention Colbert,
and a job,
picking up on that,
and a job,
leaving,
and a job,
is
and a job,
like, you know,
and a job,
after sort
and a job,
of the two
and a job,
kind of the,
and a job,
but now that's
and a job.
the next, you favor those are kicked off, favor those like a, favor those in that moment, favor those,
Yeah,
favor those, favor those,
kind of old.
favor those,
I come from
favor those, favor those,
you're 20,
favor those,
get out,
favor those,
and
right,
you know,
right,
years
right,
didn't seem
right,
right.
right,
Get out of there.
right,
And
right,
the way the
right,
down,
right,
and
right,
and the guy, so the guy back when we feel the guy when we were here the guy, and I'm still the guy, and so here the guy, okay, here the guy, here the guy, here the guy,
and mention
here the guy,
Colbert,
here the guy,
picking up on that,
and it's fun,
no,
and it's fun,
leaving,
and it's fun. And it's fun. And it's fun.
like, you know,
and it's fun.
after sort of
And it's fun.
the two
And it's fun.
kind of the,
And it's fun.
but now that's
And it's fun.
the next,
And it's fun.
are kicked off,
It's Tom.
there's like a,
It's Tom.
in that moment,
It's Tom. Yeah. It's Tom. It's Tom. Kind of old. It's Tom. I come from. It's Tom. It's Tom. You're 20. It's Tom. Get out. It's Tom. And it's media.